We're live.
Greetings, folks. Welcome to another episode. I'm your co-host, Kujo Brown,
I'm your other co-host, the bad guy.
and we are in the Cypher. Thank you for joining us for another episode, folks. We know we've been off the map a little bit for a little while, but we back and in full effect for my old school Gen X people. You know what that means. So, a lot popping off, a lot going on. So right now we're gonna dive right into it. We got the date here. It's May 28th,
28th.
2026. So let's talk about something that's been popping up quite a bit, and that is data centers. These
Yes.
conversations have been going on heavily right now all over the country because data centers are popping up everywhere. And we
Or at
know,
least trying to pop up everywhere. There
yes,
have been there've been not quite a few, but there have been a few successful battles
pushbacks.
against getting these data centers open. But you also have a lot of them being opened in less restrictive states, shall we say,
hmm
where they're getting sweetheart deals to open up these data centers literally in people's backyards.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's fair to mention, it's good to mention that they're being opened up in rural neighborhoods mainly.
Mm-hmm.
And in these neighborhoods, they basically are also getting subsidized. And this is the fascinating part, folks, is that these are not small companies. These are multi-billion-dollar companies. Why do they need tax subsidies? For what? For
Because
what?
we have corporate welfare in this country.
Exactly.
So I could understand subsidizing something. I could understand subsidizing something that was going to lead to an improvement in the area, even if it's one of these data centers. If the data center came along with an upgrade to the electrical grid in the area, okay, the people there get something out of it, but they're just taking the land, the resources. And I was watching this thing this morning. I think it was in Ohio. They're trying to open a data center and they're saying, oh, it's going to bring all these jobs to the community. The only full-time jobs that it's going to really bring to the community are 10 or 15 jobs.
Yeah. I don't know why they keep saying that, like it's going to be a benefit. And what do you think about the people on the board, right? Because the city council and the council members for these areas
Mm-hmm.
tend to have I don't know any stories about pushbacks from these people. For the most part, what I keep getting is I see these meetings where people are having town halls and blasting the city council saying
Mm-hmm.
the only people that want these data centers are you guys. There's nobody in the town that's rooting for this.
Well,
So
because they're getting some form of a kickback, and it might not be money. So I don't want anyone to say that I'm accusing these people of getting money, but
but
there's some
probably
favor
is.
there. I
It
mean,
probably is.
it might not be cash, greenbacks, right? But it is some
Right.
kind of a monetary win for these local politicians who are doing
Right.
these things.
Right. 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 And it's a major concern because ultimately the damage, right, that's being done to these neighborhoods, these rural
Mm-hmm.
neighborhoods, is immense.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating, you got to ask yourself about is how fast these data centers are rolling out. This is not a scenario, folks, where these data centers are just like, oh, let's take our time. And it's like, you have that pothole in your street that has just never, ever been fixed in years.
Mm-hmm.
And if you live in New York City, you know what I'm talking about. If you drive certain places like Belt Parkway and all that other stuff,
My,
so like the road is just ridiculous. You feel like you're off-road and then like a
it
so-called
is the
third world
enemy to
country.
your car.
You know what I mean?
Specifically the Belt Parkway.
Yeah, like you just bouncing and bouncing. But
Mm-hmm.
here comes these data centers, and yeah, it's
They roll
showtime.
out the red carpet.
It's showtime. It's not even a game. They get it off and popping. They try to make sure everything is taken care of. And I know you see this bad guy. I have conflicting data here that I'm concerned about, but I am going to read both of them off. One is from Pew Institute, and it's basically stating that 3,000 plus operational data centers already exist in the US with 1,500 planned
All
since
right.
February
But
19th.
in the industry we're in, I know back in that MSP we both worked at, you probably had to do some of these data center trips. Data centers are not something new. They're not explicitly tied to AI. What is
hmm
different about the probably 1,500 planned new data centers is that they are huge. They
Yes.
are they are little mini communities in and of themselves.
Yes. And you should mention that some of these data centers take up as much energy as the same communities, if not more.
Yes, yes. And then the thing is that the the way they're compensating the electric company, because they ain't going to lose no money either. So
Nope.
the way the electric company is compensating is raising the rates of the people in the communities.
Right. Correct. Correct. So you see your electric bill go from like 100 or 150 to like 300 or 400, and you're like, whoa, these jumps are major. And the
And
two
that's
point,
not the only thing. That's not the only thing spiking your electric bill right now.
right.
Remember that war in Iran that we're in and we're not in, and then we're in. The price of fuel directly impacts what you pay for electricity.
Correct. Correct. And also, let's talk about resources from these communities. The water. The water is
Hmm.
it's just utterly ridiculous how much water these
Millions of
systems use.
gallons, if I remember correctly, millions of gallons a day.
Absolutely. So they typically use fresh water, like over
Hmm.
80% of it is fresh water, and then it gets discharged as waste from these facilities, and it's a large amount of waste that's pumped out into
And it's
these.
not just waste. A lot of what comes out in that water, because, all right, so they don't just dump the water, they do essentially evaporate as much of the water as possible. But
Right.
what they're usually left with after that is forever chemicals, heavy
Mm,
metals, things like that. And that's getting dumped into people's aquifers downstream.
mm-hmm.
I just watched this video. I think it was More Perfect Union did a video with AOC, and she was visiting a family down in Georgia. And when what that line I said before about in the backyard, these people, and they're in rural Georgia, and it was in their backyard, so it was right there at the property line.
Mm,
And she goes inside the house. They pull out a giant mason jar, and dude, it looked like shit water. It looked like somebody took a shit in water and left it in that jug.
sludge.
It was disgusting. It was to the point that you wouldn't really be able to purify it in a home setting. And I've got a salt filter outside the house and a triple filter inside the house, and I still wouldn't be able to filter that water.
Disgusting, ridiculous, man, ridiculous. And so far, 67% of the planned data centers are in rural areas. 87 of existing data centers are in urban areas. I didn't know that, by the
Yeah.
way. Didn't know that.
See, now again, not in the people's backyard like that lady, but the if it was out in the sticks and there was nobody around, I could understand doing it. But having it anywhere where it's going to directly impact people who live in that area
Ridiculous.
is ridiculous. We are, like you
Yeah.
said, a large portion of the existing data centers are in urban areas, and they do contribute to the pollution.
Mm-hmm.
But you and I, the one that I think you might have visited when we were working at that place was the old Google data center down by
You talk about
the
West
West
Side
Side
Highway?
Highway.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
sir. So that was a building with a couple of floors. We're
yeah.
talking about hundreds of yards worth of buildings,
Talking about
right?
blocks and blocks. You're
Mm-hmm.
talking about a small community. Like it should be a community essentially, but it's just buildings of servers after server after server after server. This is an immense undertaking by the United States government and mainly by these tech oligarchs, these robber baron techs of the feudalists of today. And you could say that they actually care about, you know, technology and all these other things, but they care about technology in the sense that they're willing to sacrifice human life
Yeah,
and human existence in a means for that upbringing, for that upping to exist.
for
But the
more compute speed.
yeah, but the problem is, and this is something Nikola Tesla spoke about in his autobiography, and I employ people to read it. I'm telling you, it's a good read to get an understanding of how this man thought. he thought was his theory or ideology was, I should say, is if technology is created and the technology is not for the betterment of mankind or does not better mankind or has some side effects that ill affect humanity, then it's
Hmm.
not technology at all. It's simply not. Because
Well,
it's
it's not
just
a
causing destruction.
technological advancement.
No,
It's not an advancement in technology.
no, no, not at all. And he saw technology from a natural standpoint, from not just looking at things from a mechanical part, but he also looked at things from photosynthesis and from sunlight. From his ideas were coming from so many places of natural things that actually already exist on the planet that haven't been utilized and put together. But these feudalist, like barons of tech, don't
Hmm.
care. It's not going to affect them in their
Well,
underground bunkers.
I don't think I do think they don't care, but I don't think their lack of caring is driven from where you're implying it is. I think that they do believe they are doing something great for mankind. So
I
the
don't think
Nicole,
so.
the oh yeah. Talk to Sam Altman. He thinks he's revolutionizing the world.
I think, well, you know what? You're right in that regards, but I think it's
These guys are their
revolutionizing the
own biggest
world
hype
for,
buyers.
yeah, I think it's revolutionizing the world, but for whom? I think that's the thing with him, right?
Yes, yes. No, I don't disagree with you there. But again, in the position that Altman is in, he
Yeah.
sees it as good, as benevolent to man. Where
Yeah.
and I'll be 1,000,000% honest with everybody. I use the shit out of AI,
Yeah.
dude. I just automated. Look, I use this so much, and I got such a big task done that I told my boss I fixed the one thing that I would have eventually got fired for.
Mm. Mm.
Billing. I didn't even realize, bro. I do like $100,000 worth of purchases. I did 100,000 over the last 6 months.
Damn.
And I'm missing. My bills are all in my email. I'm lazy. I didn't upload them. I told my wife that I felt like it was beneath me, and she gave me the side eye. But it's a menial task I didn't want to do. But I got Claude to completely automate the entire process, so I don't have to worry about bills anymore.
Nice.
Every
Nice.
On the second of every month, it will submit all the bills that it collects on a daily basis that are in my inbox.
Mm. Mm.
Anyway, so for all that, just to say, I use the shit out of AI, but I see it as a tool, right? I don't think that this is the, dawning of a new age or whatever people want to sell it as. But I do believe that these heads of these AI companies believe that they are the next Nikola Tesla, the next.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're right. Tesla is, there you go. There it goes right there in the name. And one of the other scary ones that we have to be mindful of is Palantir as well. Like, because that CEO is a nut job as well.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely thinks he's doing God's work. Like they're all,
Yeah.
they all seem to have some sick complex. Maybe may I say
Yes, they
that.
do. They do. We've talked about that before. Theo actually has like an antichrist complex.
Peter
I think
Thiel.
that shit tickles his nether regions when people compare him or mention that antichrist speech of his.
Mm.
Dude, he went on a whole speaking tour about it.
Yeah, he's well, he's already got his problems, man. It's fascinating to me how cross collaboration works because Peter Thiel is a gay man with kids married, and there's no pushback against him. There's no like, oh,
Because he got money.
money cross. That's why I say cross
All that
collaboration.
matters. Look, if you go back through the history of a lot of these people who have money, they're into some freaky shit. And I ain't saying nothing bad about the dude being gay. It's just rich people like taboo shit.
Hmm.
So if in the time that you're living and you're rich, if gay was taboo, a lot of the rich people would have been into it. If for no other reason than to flaunt that they aren't encumbered by the rules of society.
Mm. Yeah, I do have work on that I've seen as well because there've been there's been a lot of venturing out into our communities because these people
Mm-hmm.
that are wealthy come into our communities to like experience our culture because it's usually taboo for them to hang out with us.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
usually how it used to work. And they have a word for it. They call it slumming. That's what they used to call it.
Slumming. Yep. Yep. Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's not taboo at all. But to stay on task, we jump back in this and like, share, subscribe, folks, in the Cypher podcast. Thanks again for being with us. But to dive into this and give some other context. So most of these data centers, we know they're being built in Virginia, Texas, Georgia,
Hmm.
and most of the South, like 62% increase in Midwest and South. Sorry, 62% increase in the South, Midwest, 64% increase. To give a bigger context of
So
countries,
real
go
quick though,
ahead.
real quick. I can tell you already that Virginia is chock full and has been for a long time of data
Data
centers,
centers, yeah,
and
hell yeah.
and a large part of that is a central spot in the East Coast or the Eastern Seaboard's internet pipeline. Because if I remember correctly, a large pipeline from overseas hits the U.S. in the Virginia area.
So
And DC is right there. So you've got a lot of government data centers in there
I
too.
was I was about to say the DMV area because remember the internet was a government funded project. So
Hmm.
naturally the government already,
DARPA funded
yeah,
project.
yes. So this is something that was in the loops in the mix. So government naturally has some of the biggest data centers already on,
Yeah.
you know.
When we talk about internet backbones, these are large nodes that are then split up. You'll find that a lot of those government data centers sit on the spine.
Yeah.
They're at the pre op. So part of the Patriot Act was essentially phone tapping the internet, and the way they did it was they put their software on the backbone location. So not sniffing out Cujo's IP address, catching packets on their way to and from Cujo's IP address.
Hmm. Hmm. Intercepting essentially.
Yes.
Intercepting. And it's fascinating. So we'll say this: it's difficult because you have to process how many data centers we have compared to other countries, and the data that we collected, folks, and correct us if we're wrong, showing that United States far outpaces all the other countries. United States has 5,427 and growing.
Hmm.
China has 369. Now you have to think to yourself, China has more people and
Well,
they have
but hold on,
less data centers.
hold on. China also worked out DeepSeek. DeepSeek runs on a much smaller hardware payload, and it runs at fractions of the cost of OpenAI or Anthropic. And it's almost as good, if not in some cases better.
Yes, yes, I've heard in regards to that. But
You know what the difference is, right?
no, what's the
Anthropic
difference?
and OpenAI are for-profit companies. Even if they were founded as not-for-profits, that doesn't mean the people there are working for free.
No, no,
And
absolutely.
if I've worked at one of my first sysadmin jobs was at a non-for-profit, they get paid good money, bro, good money. And if you're in a tech non-for-profit, you're getting paid ridiculous amounts of money.
Absolutely.
And DeepSeek is, and I have a DeepSeek API, but I don't use it as much as I use the others. But it's stood up by the government. That's why they're able to run it for so cheap. And I'm not a big fan of China. It doesn't mean that I'm, a huge fan of the American government, but that's a great way to get whatever your IP is stolen, because that's what China's going to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust it at all. Unfortunately, our countries are at feud, and it just wouldn't be helpful in my regards to put myself in that compromising position.
I
You
mean,
know,
if you're an everyday person and you're just using Chat GPT or AI tools to like I was doing my own personal billing, not for my company. Whoa, hell no, brother.
hmm,
My boss will fly down from all the way up north and fire me in person if I were
mm,
to put it a DeepSeek API on our network. But if you're doing like your regular bills and stuff, ain't nobody in China care about your bills. They care about the software that my company creates because it makes money. But they don't
Right.
care about your bills, right?
Right. Right.
So if you want to use it, go ahead and use it. If you're developing software of any kind, I'm working on a little software project. I don't think anybody in China would be interested in it, but I promise you that they're just scaling through GitHub, grabbing every piece of software they can, trying to freak it.
Makes
So
sense. I agree.
I
I
would
think they would.
avoid, if you're developing software, using DeepSeek. At least not on your software. If you're using DeepSeek to create assets for your software, like icons and stuff, whatever. But don't tie it into your software because you're just giving it away at that point.
Hand it over to them.
Yeah, and if you're smart, you do what the US did on those data centers. You catch everything and then you sift through the big pile, find what's
Right.
good. Not look for something good and then take it. Just take everything.
Some tech words from your man, the bad guy here, folks. Like, share, subscribe, and the Cypher podcast. So the numbers, though, going back to
Mm-hmm.
China, still 369. That's pretty small. And yes, they're definitely more efficient. United Kingdom is at 498, probably growing as well. Germany
Yeah,
is in the hundreds.
I think you need to, if you're gonna start rattling off the different European ones, you've got to do the EU as a total. And I'm not saying that they would get close to us, but I'm sure they'd get a lot closer than, one of these countries having 100, another one having 300.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Because we're a lot larger. A good comparison would be if Russia was. I'm sure they have plenty of data centers. They just don't disclose all of them. But a good comparison would be Russia, China, something like that. But to compare the UK to the US, bro.
Yeah, I agree. Overall, Europe has 3,400 data centers to be accurate. So they have quite a few. It's still not as much as us, but at least they're in the thousands. And that is the closest one outside of
Mm-hmm.
China, to be honest. Germany, obviously a part of the Europe, so that's included in there, and Japan. Japan has no numbers right now. I'll pull those up a little later or another time, add those in.
Japan is one giant data center.
You know, yeah,
Man.
but they have quite a few there too. But the other part is to add this in is just to know that most Americans just really don't like data centers, and their quote unquote so-called representatives are not doing anything about it. It's a must that people actually have to get out and protest and push back against this, because it's it's one thing to put something up, put infrastructure together that's actually going to
Mm-hmm.
help a community. But it's another thing to put something up that's actually going to drain the community that's already being beaten down with gas prices, all the other issues that we have with infrastructure, roads,
Mm-hmm.
bridges, dams, you name it. And also, by the way, there's also noticeable less water flowing through the Mississippi River, which runs heavily throughout America. I don't know if most people know that, but they've been noticing that the Mississippi River has been drying up a little bit in certain spots, and that's a problem.
No,
Now,
I'm no geologist or whatever a river scientist is, but I'm sure that those rivers feed the underground aquifers that a lot of people in this country still get their water from. And those are the same aquifers that they're not just tapping, but turning around and then polluting.
mm,
I
yeah,
could I could deal with the using of the resources, but then going and contaminating what's remaining of those resources is wild.
it definitely is, bro. It definitely is. And we don't have much. The thing is that's it's interesting is like I don't know how much of a say people really get to have in these meetings and these events to actually push back against this.
I mean, you don't get to say, you just really get to express your outrage.
Mm, yeah,
It for the most part is a cathartic experience. Now, don't get me wrong. If you were to get some kind, the, honestly, the only way to really get anything done is to be able to threaten jobs.
yeah, yeah,
We're going to get enough people together to vote against you, not even for anybody else, just against you.
yeah, yeah. I think that is one of the mainstays of it. Unless
Mm-hmm.
people are willing to actually, and I'm not condoning violence, folks, I'm not, but unless people are actually getting out there and sabotaging these data centers and making sure they don't actually get built, which is possible. Due to these data centers going up, by the way, construction, such as, you know, anybody doing that builds data centers, and I'm talking about you
Mm-hmm.
electricians out there, they
Yep.
are making bank right now.
Hell yeah.
Woo!
And
Electricians are doing it.
they're running a lot of high throughput lines, whether it's electricity or network cable. That is there's so
Much.
they must have like hundreds of miles worth of cable in those places.
My gosh, can you imagine? You
I'd rather
imagine?
not. Dude,
Yeah, I
that's a
get
high
you.
stress work environment.
Absolutely. You fuck up, you got a problem.
Network center, you unplug one cable and you don't get it back into the right slot, the whole
Yeah.
world stops.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole world changes, man. So it's interesting, man, but there's so much to be said in regards to this. And I'd like to close out. I'll say this on this topic, just saying like I want to revisit this and then look at the other side of the spectrum, which is the consumer, the people that are using the AI tools and more obviously social media being
Mm-hmm.
plugged into it and how much data they're actually garbling up from us. We'd like to cover a little bit of that at a later date to continue this conversation because we do want people to be somewhat aware of the changes that are happening in tech. Most people just click on stuff and don't look at any signatures or anything like that, which is also problematic, and I want to cover that as well because if you sign off electronically on things, you'll find
Mm-hmm.
out that you actually voided the right to actually
Yeah.
sue some of these companies.
Yep. There's a
So,
terms of service for a reason.
hmm and you may have to do the arbitration rather than actually go and do a full scale, put it out in the public lawsuit. But yeah, we're going to go into this more, man. Anything you want to wrap up on this?
No, man, just, for the listeners, don't get caught up in the AI craze. I literally, I just saw an AI bed, right? It's like, you remember when HD came out, everything was
Yep.
high definition sunglasses. Like, come on, man. It's like just tagging the name of a technology. So, I'm not saying not to use it if it's out there and you're interested in using it, have fun. But it's not the miracle that it's being sold as. It's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Trust me. It almost feels like a fucking slot machine. Like you're
Right.
always one pull away from the big win.
Right, right. And they're trying to sell that to us like it's not even funny right now.
And it's intentional. It's intentional. It's not an accidental side effect of it. They want you to constantly be coming back for more because then you're burning tokens.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
where this is going. They're going to commoditize the tokens that run these networks.
And this is gonna be a long conversation, man. We got to get into that big time because they're coming everywhere. They're going
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. We already have one in here. We have a couple building in New Jersey, but we're going to dive into this a lot more deeper, folks, and the other side of the data outside of the data centers and what this means to you, me, your family, friends, and all your loved ones. You dig? So that being said, let's jump into this next one. Again, like, share, subscribe, in the Cypher podcast, folks. Thank you for rocking with us. The far right extremists, the rise of a new enemy, women. I find this fascinating. Let me know what you think about this,
I
man.
don't.
I think it's
First of all, I
crazy.
don't know if anybody's familiar with the history of this country, but they're not the new enemy. They're just the new one that's front and center.
Yeah, yeah, you could say that again.
Mm-hmm.
You could say that again. The the interesting thing about this conversation, right, is they're looking at women as if they're the major problem. And let me give kudos to the person that wrote this article, Odeto Youssef.
Mm-hmm.
Odetta Youssef is a national security correspondent focusing on extremism. And she noted that the shooting that took place a couple of weeks ago at that California mosque, one of the things that was found, and of course, these losers always have a manifesto.
Yep.
In the manifesto was they basically said the number one target is Jewish people, the second target is women. Like,
Which
whoa.
is crazy.
crazy.
Hmm.
Now, the thing is though, and this is the part that's tough for me because I'm like, I get it, but the thing is, there are not that many shootings you could point to that are women. Like it's not like they've made a concerted effort to go into a foot salon or a nail salon and just like shoot up all the white women there. Like I don't,
No, no, no.
yeah,
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I would
yeah.
say. I would say in the past it was a lot of the angst of some of these people was driven, or some of these men was driven by their inability to find happiness with a woman. I don't even want to say not be able to find a woman, but whatever their idea of happiness was, they weren't able to find it. And because we live in this society that teaches us we have to have that exact kind of happiness, they felt robbed.
I think you make a good point, right? That's a very important point, and it's part of the European like
Mm,
mentality about capitalism and patriarchy that's mixed together that's kind of bastardized in so many ways. And their tactic is called like accelerationism, which is far right supremacist, neo-Nazi type dudes, and their basic goal is to create a patriarchal ethno state with just the men ruling. And I think,
mm.
you watch too much TV, you see white men always winning, always in charge. I
Well,
mean,
but
even in the
that's what I
movie
was
The
saying.
Warriors, right? You remember Warriors?
Uh-huh. Yep.
What he was the leader? Like, nah. I mean, I don't know,
Word,
man.
word. Your man with the afro and the fucking long earring, he was the one that looked like the best fighter out of all of them, but he wasn't the leader.
He wasn't the leader. I was just
Well,
like,
because, dude, you got to have your white knight.
yeah, and that's the
You
thing, right? He
have to
was
have the white guy that saves everybody.
in order for the movie to even be taken seriously, right? Because
Hmm.
they're pushing, because again, folks, Hollywood entertainment is not just entertainment, it's always conditioning and programming. You have to understand that aspect. A
Well,
lot of work
if
in that
you're
area.
watching a movie that has to do with war or sports, it's probably in one way or another influenced by the CIA. And y'all can
Yeah,
call me a conspiracy theorist if you
no,
want, but there's paperwork out there on this.
no. There's actually plenty of work on this. There's been work in regards to this because it's been a known fact that they are involved, and you're not going to use a military helicopter, a chopper for your movie and think that they're not going to have input.
Mm.
And there's actually work on this, and the book is called National Security Cinema. It's by Matthew Alford and Tom Seeker. Some really good work on there on how the military utilizes the film industry, and that relationship has always been some kind of like a symbiotic relationship, but obviously
Well,
the
and
military has
it
more
replicates
power.
on a local level too. So
Yeah,
in New York, you see a lot of shows filmed in New York that don't have NYPD vehicles. When they do, they came to some kind of an agreement. NYPD has to be shown in a certain light, I'm sure very heroically, right? Is
right,
you
right,
have to put across the image that they want put across.
right, 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 exactly. And I think that's one of the most important things to understand when it comes to these stories. You're not only getting like propaganda from, this patriarchal side, but you're also getting it from a government side. This is government actual funding. So it's again, this is all a part of the push to drive this image of the white male being so dominant. And I
So
think,
it is from the patriarchal side.
yeah, absolutely.
That's the overarching theme. Our government is formed out of Western patriarchal society.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so this is a problem now when these people come into the real world and they get off the TV and they actually have to talk
Hmm.
to a woman. They actually have to talk to a person that's non-white, and they've been conditioned to think a certain way, not just from videos and film and media and all this, but also from their households. Because if you're really a parent, you're going to notice this and put an end to it if you don't want it to happen.
It
You know,
is it is the realization that they are indeed mediocre white men.
yeah, yeah, and
It's
that's
what it is. And I don't mean to cut you off, but
go ahead.
it's if you listen long enough, you'll hear me mention Fight Club a lot. But I think it's where the audience who fell in love with that movie went wrong on the message, right? The message is that these people they're not good, right? They are just realizing now that they are the rejects of this patriarchal society because they don't have wives, because they don't have children. Not even that they want them, they just feel unapart of because they don't, right? They don't feel as successful as their fathers were when the promise has always been that you will be more successful than your ancestors. Realizing that this world isn't really made for them, that they actually have to compete in this world is
Hmm.
damaging to their psyche.
Absolutely. Because the funny thing is, their parents, baby boomers, didn't inform them or don't even know how much they were helped due to things like the New World Order and trying to actually, yeah, straight up, like the whole things like GI Bill,
Hmm.
all the money that was pumped into the rural areas in order
You
to
said the
build them
New
up.
World Order, you meant the New Deal?
New Deal, my bad. I'm slipping, folks. So
Yeah.
you see these systems that are pumped up for them to succeed, but that was due
Hmm.
to the fact that back in those days there was a big push from unions and grassroots movements that were left to get those resources pushed towards them. So that history has been blocked out and wiped out, so they don't even know that. But
Well, a lot of these white people now don't realize that their families were able to get houses because of things like the GI Bill, go to college because of things like the GI Bill, right? And what they also don't realize is that while their families were readily given access to these programs, black people who came back from those same wars, Puerto Rican people who came back from those same wars,
mhm,
were not even denied, were not eligible,
right, right,
right? Beyond, I get a certain amount of people being denied a service. There's always fraud in every system, but they weren't even allowed legally. They were not allowed to collect these benefits.
correct. That's
Dude,
ill when you think about it.
my grandfather died in Korea, and my grandmother got very little, maybe Social Security, which was because of my mother, but there was no GI benefit for my family. There was really nothing.
Crazy,
A flag, a picture, some medals.
crazy,
Hmm.
and sad, bro, and
Yeah.
sad. Like this is the part that's difficult is the lack of respect for life and on across the scale.
Yeah.
And you and this is essentially the funny thing is the ill thing is this is what these men that are white classified as white end up doing is they don't respect any life. And you have a bunch of these shootings. You have the 2019 massacre at Walmart in El Paso, Texas. You have the 2022 shooting spree in the Tops grocery store, predominantly African American, Buffalo, New York. 2022 mass shooting gay bar, Colorado Springs. 2023 African American Dollar General store, Jacksonville shooting. Like,
Hmm.
and
And
we
if
can go.
anybody wants to point out that two of the shooters in the events that he just named were Latino, I'll just point you at the stat that I mentioned earlier about only 20 of Latinos in Florida now being against Trump. So just because they got a Spanish last name doesn't mean that they don't think they're white. And that's what matters, right? I know the right doesn't like this, but what you identify as matters,
And I'm
right?
telling you,
If
man,
this kid's last name, I'm making up a last name, but his last name is Torres, that doesn't mean that he's identifying as Afro-Cuban or Afro-Latino. He himself thought he was white and he felt entitled to that white man's dream.
right, right. That's the way he functions. That's the way he moves through society. That's the decision he made, and a lot of these guys were, obviously inspired by a couple of shootings, the one in New Zealand, the one in Norway.
Mm-hmm.
They're plentiful, unfortunately. But in this conversation, I think I really I like I said, I read this article and I still like the work. I think it's important, but I still think it's somewhat misleading to say that for the far right extremists, the rise of a new enemy, women. I just I haven't seen the evidence of women being shot up in any of these spaces. I just don't.
Well, just because it's the enemy, these are targets of opportunity. Again, I think one of the driving factors in these, I don't want to call it outbursts, in these violent outbursts, one of the driving factors is the lack of intimacy. And it doesn't necessarily have to be women, just the lack of intimacy with the person, because a lot of times it'll be a person or the people that they seek affection from.
Yeah, possibly. I do think that that plays a role. I think the hate is there. I'm not negating the hate of women. I think that a lot of
It's
these
just that
people,
the victims aren't always women.
a large majority, I mean, with the stuff we just rolled off, I mean, these spaces obviously had women in them, but the large
Well, the
majority of these
space is
shootings are of non-white people. They're black people. Like, I mean, if we're being honest,
wow,
so
but
that's why it's like,
that's not the headline, bro.
I
Come
know,
on, that's the
I know,
the
and that's
headline is women.
I know, but that's the reason why I like reading this work. Like I'm reading it, and I appreciate it. I can get things from it, but this is where reading and being a critical reader and understanding like what's being said as opposed to actually what's going on is
What's not
extremely,
being said.
yeah, yeah. And it's a funny thing because I was just like, yeah, this is a good article, but where's the data for all the women that have been shot in these cases, in these murder sprees?
I know. I don't think you mentioned the Dylan Roof case either,
Yeah,
which was in a black church.
yeah, and that was more of that was even that just as egregious, but it's even worse because technically he assassinated somebody that was actually in office. Like I think she, if I was correct, she was Congress or some kind of senator of
Yeah,
the
there was
U.S.
some politician, some elected official in that
Yeah,
church. That
yeah. So technically, that's an assassination. He should be considered, a terrorist in that sense. Forget about just hate crime. It's a
you know,
terrorist act.
what white terrorists get.
Hamburgers. Man got stopped and they gave him a hand. You hungry?
Do you want ketchup or do you want mustard on?
How much? You supersize him. Give me.
Hey, listen,
Nah.
listen. I've spent a night. I've spent a few nights in Central Booking, but one of them they gave us McDonald's. There was a McDonald's right up the block. If anybody ever remembers when Flavor Flav got arrested, I was the
Mm,
44th precinct in the Bronx.
mm.
Spent the night there. They gave us McDonald's, but it was behind bars, bro. They didn't say
Nah, I
the
didn't
paddy
get.
wagon didn't hit the drive-through for us.
Yeah, I ain't get nothing like that, bro. I was just locked up. I ain't
No,
getting nothing.
almost every other time I've been there has been some sandwich that I didn't even eat, served
Yeah,
better as a damn pillow.
yeah. I was just stuck in that joint, man. But again, this falls back to what we were talking about: mediocre white men.
Yeah.
And this
Well,
is a.
what I was going to say with the reason why the headline is women is because, Bobby Sue in Alabama has to be afraid of those brown people that she's never going to encounter in her life ever. But she
Mm.
needs to be afraid of them. And she needs to think that they're coming after her.
I would have preferred if the article spoke about the turning point of women's empowerment in this world and how educated, and then as they become more educated, they become tend to become more liberal in certain spaces. And also the fact that this Trump regime made a concerted effort to eliminate jobs from Black women, and henceforth, this seems like a concentrated attack on women across the board, along with the fact that they've now said that if you have a degree in physical therapy, nurse, or anything like that, your degree doesn't actually count
You
anymore.
mean in predominantly women led fields?
Exactly, exactly.
Dude,
So if the article mentioned that, I would have
they
appreciated that more.
they want women in the kitchen barefoot. There's a group of ultra conservative pastors who are convincing women that women shouldn't have the right to vote.
Yeah, Pete Hegseth's
Yeah,
so-called
yeah.
pastor.
I've seen several mediocre white women
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
on the internet advocating to lose their own voting rights because liberalism.
Yeah.
Dude, they're afraid of Chuck Schumer.
I mean, to
Come
be
on,
blunt,
bro.
man, like the whole thing with, a lot of these women now that are right wing that are turning, they're not really turning away from the right wing itself. They're more or less turning away from the MAGA experience of the right wing.
Yes.
It's not like they're going to the result is going to come back and they're going to shift and become democratic or even
Well,
far
white
left.
women are not going to save the republic.
No, white women will burn it down with you. That's what's going to end up
Mm-hmm.
happening.
Well, it's like when we talk about the DSA groups. They'll
Yeah.
be in it. They'll be in it with black women until they get, and they will get theirs first. And then all of a sudden, it's why are you still complaining about
Exactly. It's interesting, man. It's interesting, to say the least. I'm going to keep my eye on articles like this and other programs and that may come up, like More Perfect Union and anything else
it?
that may have
Mm-hmm.
more insight that I think would be more, better. Again, I still think this article is important. I am not knocking the author. I think it's important that you do pay attention to the hatred towards women and the fact that it does lead to a form of femicide. And
Yes.
there's no getting around it.
Uh-huh.
I just think that this article did a poor job of actually going into those details. Like I just did a better job just telling you about the amount of women that were fired from the DMV and fired from the and also
You
let go in other spaces
you can
politically.
list. You can learn more about school shooters listening to Pearl Jam's Jeremy
Hmm.
than than this article really provided.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But again, I know it's still good work. It's not horrible. And they did give a good connection between some of these shooters and the other shooters that are international. Like I said, the one in New Zealand, the one in Norway, these are all not to be ignored because they're copycats. That's exactly what's happening. And they're going to continue doing this, you know.
Uh-huh.
So but on to the
And they
mediocre.
inspire each other.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things the article does mention. I got to admit that.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely do that. Let's jump to this now. Mediocre white men. Oh, wait. Should we jump to mediocre white men or should we talk about
No,
1776?
I think the 1776 is going to lead very well into the mediocre white men. So, first of all, audience, if you reply to this and you say 1.8 or 2 billion, I'm going to shame you.
Shame them.
It is 1.776 billion. He
Shame
made
them.
it that number for a reason, and we should not let that go unsaid.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He wants to make he being Trump. Everything is symbolic. This is an advertising guy. I don't know how y'all haven't figured this out yet, but he's just an advertising guy. He wants his face on a $250 bill. He wants this associated with the 250th because, mind you, this fund has to be distributed before his last day in office.
Mm.
It dissolves after that. So if it's not distributed, it dissolves. I don't know what happens to the money left in it, but there's essentially no oversight on it. I mean, I'm sure if Democrats win in the midterms, they're going to try to exercise oversight of it, but there's no oversight on it. It comes as the result of him negotiating, quote unquote, negotiating with his own IRS and his own Justice Department out of a $10 billion lawsuit that he had. So he negotiates down to 1.776 billion under the auspices that it is going to be paid out to people who were persecuted by the Department of Justice that he
We'll see.
currently runs.
We'll see about that.
So hold on, it gets better. Upon getting this signed into law or reaching this agreement with the IRS and DOJ, they added an addendum to it that bars the federal government from auditing, investigating, or in any way interfering with Trump family members, their businesses, and their trusts.
Getting ready. He's
That
getting
deserved
ready.
a moment of silence. That 1.776 billion the vast majority of that is going to him and his family.
Getting ready to try to protect himself because people are going to come for him.
See, but here's the thing is that those weren't executive orders, but those are essentially executive orders. He is forcing the Department of Justice and the IRS to do these things. When he's gone, whoever replaces these people, because these people will get replaced, they're just going to say, no, we're not doing that anymore. Right? It's not like this was passed through legislation where they'd have to go to the Supreme Court. This is internal department mechanics. That's why he has to have that spent by the time he leaves office, because if there's any money left there, it's gone. Not even say he didn't have the clause to dissolve it on, I think, the 19th of January. If there was, say, $500 million left in there on the 20th, the president's going to tell the IRS to stop paying it out. Right? There's no law that makes this a thing.
I'm curious how this is going to pan out, because I got to be honest, I'm thinking that other people can apply to it.
Well, I was telling my wife the other day, I think a great form of protest would be everybody should just start applying for it.
I agree. I think everybody should apply for it and see what happens. Like, what are you going to do?
I did the math, bro. I think if every person in this country applied for it, we would all get about $5 each. So we would all essentially get a free gallon of gas.
Yeah.
You got 4 people in your house, you got 4 free gallons of gas.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Man,
I honestly just want to gum the works up.
I do too. But I got to be honest with you, man. This dude, there's so many issues with him that we already know about, but it's the people surrounding him that are enabling it, because it's not almost like, there's him that's clearly doing robbery, right? And corrupt as hell. But then behind the scenes, all these other people that have gotten what they got because they paid him already are doing all this mischievous, like really evil work at the end of the day. You're talking about removing the Voting Rights Act. You're talking about all the other things going on with these data centers and the AI, Palantir having access to more and more of our data. You're talking about rolling back women's rights. You're talking about all these things going on. And I tell you, like, it's almost like he's allowed this fight to go on, and it's 2 divisions going on. It's between the techno-fascists and the white nationalists. And they don't actually get along fundamentally at the core. They have a good hatred of the same people, which is non-white people. But that hatred can only last so long before they turn on each other, because they have issues with each other, because the techno-fascists are any and everything. They don't mind having an Indian guy sitting next to them, giving them denotations and telling them what to do. They don't care about that, because they're like, I'm still in the show. I run everything. The white nationalists are like, I don't want no transy. I don't want no homosexuality. Yep. I don't want no out of wedlock. My woman can't vote. I don't want no sand niggas next to me. I don't want no type of anything except for white and right. And that's the fundamental difference I think is going to drive a wedge to them. And it's going to keep doing that for some time. And we saw a little bit of that with the H-1Bs, right?
Yeah, with when was it Vivek Ramaswamy?
Yeah.
That he made a comment about it. And bro, there's this younger right-wing podcaster that I watch some of his content, and he is vehemently anti-Vivek Ramaswamy. Like these right-wing nationalists, like Kujo said, bro, if you're not European or of European descent, they don't want you in their areas. And then when they do get just their European members or communities, they don't want each other around each other.
Yeah, for real. It's not a game. They're very adamant about this.
Us not being here will not fix what's broken with these people.
No, not at all. Not at all. They will end up killing each other eventually. It's just that we have to stay the hell out of the way in the process while that happens. Because I'm telling you, it's going to happen.
It happens every day, bro.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, there are some cases where they're not white, but if you look at most of these family murder cases where like people are wiping out their entire family and then killing themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and mostly white dudes,
Yeah, it is.
mostly mediocre white dudes.
There are some cases. I mean, there was a case with a black man that I believe was a governor that killed his him himself and his wife, and that was sad.
Yeah, no. The couple. So I'm talking
Yeah,
about wiping out the family, killing the
yeah. I know
kids,
what you're
killing the
talking about.
wife, and then turning the gun on himself. That's typically white dudes. There was one of these family murders recently. I think the guy ran around town killing his kids or his baby mamas or something.
Yeah,
But it's typically, by and large, white men.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I do think this is, and we're dealing with men's health to some degree when I say this one, and we're expanding on this conversation with just white men to men in general. I do think as men, non-white males, we tend to do the opposite, which is slow death, which is the drinking, the smoking, all the
Mm-hmm.
things that are like that don't lead to too much, like having a Hennessy underneath your bed or some crap. You know what I mean? Like some real, you know what I'm talking about? Like
Dang,
that's
I
real
don't know
deal.
what you're talking about. I've never been that much of a drinker.
No, I'm talking about there are people that I know that do this, and I
Yeah,
think
no, I know.
people that wake up and drink a 40, it's just,
Dude, I got cousins that roll around with the little Henny bottle.
you know,
Let
and
me let me not be, a hypocrite. When me and my wife go to like amusement parks or whatever, I bring alcohol with me. But I'm just talking about like on a regular day-to-day basis. Rolling around with a bottle of alcohol? Come on, bro. That's crazy.
I've seen it though, man. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the slow suicide, right? That's the suicide that we don't talk about. Drinking yourself to death, poisoning yourself to death. And because it's a social activity, people pay no mind and don't pay attention to it, but it's serious. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? It's very serious. Very few of us put the gun to the head and just end it like that. I think most of us do the slow death. And the one thing that I think is difficult is as men, we don't get intimacy mainly from any other heterosexual men, mainly from women. That's mainly where we get most of our intimacy from.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have a woman in your life or you're unable to make connections with women, it's a very depressing, sad space. There's no escaping that.
Yes.
There's no escaping that. And I think back to other experiences that I've had where, I was basketball player and athlete and all this other stuff, and it was easier to talk to girls. But then when you get older and you're not playing ball anymore like that, and you then actually have to have a conversation, and there's no varsity
You have
jacket
to
on your
have a
back.
personality.
Exactly. It changes the whole entire dynamic. And then you start realizing, like, oh shit, I got to actually learn how to talk to these chicks.
See, but
You
here's
know what
the
I'm
thing.
saying?
Here's the thing is that you learn that lesson. The people, the boys, the guys that we're talking about, they never learned that lesson. A big part of the animosity is that, and if you speak to them, you'll, or if you listen to some of their content, you'll hear it very clearly.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
feel as though they are entitled to the affection of a woman, not just like an individual woman, just in general. They feel that they're entitled to be loved, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when they don't get that love, it like you said, it can be damaging to your mental state. But what happens is, instead of changing, which is what you were talking about, having to change, having to develop a personality, they resentfully won't do it and still not understand why nobody loves them. And
Right.
nobody's entitled to love. I think everyone deserves to be loved. But in order to be loved, you have to be you have to be willing to change. I'm sure when you and your girl got together, y'all changed something a little bit about herself, a little bit about yourself, so that y'all could fit together. Me and my
Yeah.
wife had to. And it's 20 years, and sometimes we got to still adjust a little bit because we're two people and we
Yeah.
don't fit perfectly together. But these men think that they should be accepted the way they are without improving on themselves. Even though they watch all these manosphere things about, self improvement. Don't get me wrong, women love a man with a nice body, but I'm sure most women would prefer nice conversational relationship, somebody they can be people together with, as opposed to having the body of an Adonis and the personality of a shitbag.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's one of the
Hey,
things.
dude, there's women out there that are gorgeous. I don't want to deal with the gorgeous woman that has a shitty personality.
Yeah, trust me. I've been there. And
Hey,
you
it's
you
not worth the
it's
payoff.
not worth it. It's not worth it. You really have to have the balance because it's extremely important not only for her, but it's also obviously it reflects on you to what type of
Hmm.
individual you choose to surround yourself with. But you
Yes.
look at these right-wing guys like Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes has never been with a woman. He admitted that. He's never been with a woman. Can you believe
Nick
that?
Fuentes doesn't like women.
He doesn't like women, but he's
How
never
how much
been with one.
How much of Nick Fuentes have you watched?
Enough. Enough. I
If
saw him
he
get
if he
questioned by
wasn't
Pierce Morgan, and Pierce Morgan was just asking him simple questions. Have you ever been with a woman? No, no, I haven't. You don't have a woman at all? No, no, I haven't. But you don't like women. He's like, nah, I don't. He's like, okay, that says a lot. I was like, oh, Pierce? Wow, I was surprised.
if if Nick Fuentes was not raised Catholic, he would be gay.
Yeah,
I'll
probably.
say that shit straight up. If Nick Fuentes was not raised Catholic, he would be gay. And I don't mean that to be an insult in any way. He's just a closeted homosexual.
Mm, that's what it is.
And if Nick Fuentes didn't have the platform he has, I would tell you you would have to worry about a Nick Fuentes.
I agree. I agree. I agree. I felt that, anytime I hear dudes talking and they talk like that, the way he talks,
Mm-hmm.
I used to say it to the dudes in my chat, the dude in my chat that was racist as hell. I used to be like, yo, bruh, please don't shoot up a school. Like, yo, just
Yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah.
do it, bruh. Don't do it, man. Anytime you get the urge, just turn to your family and look
Go
at them and
shoot your
say,
nah, go shoot yourself. If you get the
yeah,
urge, go shoot
yeah.
yourself.
I was saying turn to your family and remember, like, your sons and your kids are gonna miss you.
That's
Like,
why your name ain't the bad guy.
you know what I'm saying? You feel me? Like that's
Especially in the heat of a moment, like in the middle of a, he just says something stupid situation. Oh, I just told you, yo, just don't shoot up the school. Go somewhere and shoot yourself.
he definitely needed that, man. He definitely needed that. It was very difficult to communicate in those spaces, and I understood right then and there. I was like, yeah, these guys don't know how to deal with. Because if you got a good woman by your side, it's very hard to become such an asshole. But
No, no,
when
you're not wrong. And
when you
it's not just a good woman. If you can keep yourself in decent company, it doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship. These guys that we're talking about, they're not running around with large groups of friends. They're
mm,
not, except for the internet where they meet
hmm
up.
hmm
But, back in the day, this was two kids from a school in Colorado. Now they've gotten together on the internet. So it seems like this big, I don't want to say movement, but this big phenomenon. And it's not. It's just that they're in an echo chamber in these social media communities, and they amplify this feeling amongst each other. But a lot of it, I would even venture to say most of it, is either the lack of companionship, romantic and platonic, or repressed homosexuality.
mm, mm. Yeah, I think a lot of them. It's a mixture. It's a mixture.
Shame, which is the bottom line of it all, is shame.
And the tough part is about that is that there are aspects of shame that are good. Like I think what was her name? I forgot her name, but she did a slut shame walk. A
Yeah,
slut.
yeah. Me and you have had this discussion before. You're talking about that. Well, that's one right there. We were talking about phenomenal bodies and shit personalities. You're talking about Kanye's West.
Yeah,
Kanye West's
Kanye West
ex.
ex-wife. And I think it's
Something Rose.
yeah. And I was like, you should be shamed. You should be shamed for what you
Nah, I mean,
for
if
that.
she's okay with doing it, I just don't see the. What I didn't like about it was making it a thing like to be proud of.
Yeah,
Because even as a dude, you shouldn't be proud of.
yeah. I just think it's Well, I made the argument, and I still do make this argument, is that we could try our best to make things equal among men and women, but we have differences, and that's actually okay. And one of the big differences is, yeah, it's harder for women to sleep around like it's normal. They could do it.
Well, hold on. It's harder, or do you mean it's worse on their reputation?
It's harder because it's really dangerous, bro. It's
Okay,
actually
yes.
really
Well,
dangerous,
but
bro.
hold on. Again,
I mean,
hold
come
on,
on, you and me
hold
know
on.
how some of these
Wait a
dudes are out
second.
here. It's
Wait a
dangerous.
second. It is dangerous for their health, physical health.
Life. They could get
Yeah,
murdered, bro. What are you talking about
no,
physical
that's what
health?
I'm saying. Physical health.
Yo, man,
It's
it's
dangerous for
scary.
their lives. But you're saying that it's harder. It's a harder decision maybe to make. But it is way easier for a woman to get laid tonight than it is for you or I.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In that aspect of executing it, yeah, you can. But
It's a
again,
it's a more dangerous proposition every time they do it. I
e-
totally agree with you.
exactly. It's no joke, man, but again, this does happen though. There are women that find ways to be safe and figure out who's who and what's what. And henceforth, the song by Daryl Hall and Oates, she's a man eater, right? She only
But there's
comes
a
out at
lot of
night.
songs. Yeah, there's a
She's
lot of
she
songs
on,
like that.
right? She only comes
Roxanne.
out at night. She's the lean and
Yeah.
hungry type. Like
Mhm.
it's literally saying like, yo, she is a devourer of men. Like you think you getting over. Nah, 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 nah. She's getting over. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what's happening right there. She's getting her rocks off. And that's what it's about. Like, yeah, you okay, but nah, I'm doing me.
You're
So
just getting used tonight.
yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So again, this is why like it does happen. It is absolutely doable and it's possible. But I'm not going to lie to any woman and be like, "Oh yeah, you could do exactly what I could do." No, no, you have to really be careful. You got to be
No, no,
careful.
yeah, you're 100% right. I can for the most part walk down whatever street I want at whatever time I want.
Right, right.
And oh, dude, there was a trend on social media, women saying what they would do if there was a day with no men, and then some of it was wild. Some of it was wild. Don't get me wrong. Some of it was wild, but for the most part, it was shit that I take for granted. Like I don't if I have headphones on and I'm walking like out in the street or something, I usually leave one ear off, but that's because I was raised in the Bronx and I don't trust nobody.
Exactly. Right.
But there's plenty of times I'll sit in the airport with both headphones on, looking around, being alert or whatever. But I never feel threatened. I just
Mm,
don't like being surprised, so I'll just leave one earphone off. Women have to because if they're not paying attention, somebody might come up and grab them,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
Yeah,
There's
in that respect, you're 100% right. They have to deal with the threat of danger in
no,
ways that
we don't even imagine most of the times.
we don't imagine. Not saying that has never happened to a man, but it is rare.
Yeah, and I think when it happens to a male, it's usually a younger male child, like it's a
And
boy.
if anybody's going to make the argument about male rape in jail, I wasn't specifically speaking about that. I was
Okay,
speaking about the being abducted part, right?
right, right, and
in
and
in jail it happens, but
and
on the street getting snatched up like that, that's typically women and children that happens
yeah,
to.
and sometimes my lady, what she does, she puts both headphones on because people try to talk to her and she just doesn't want to
My
do it.
wife does that on the train,
Yeah,
but I'll tell you this, the moment she's walking down the street to come home from the 5 train, one of those earphones was out.
right,
It's
right,
situational, right? But again,
exactly,
I don't have to worry about that. If I'm on the train rocking out to whatever the fuck I'm listening to, and I don't want to take the headphone out, I feel the same.
right,
I don't
right,
feel any extra level of danger because I still look like I do. I still give off the same presence I give.
right, right. I get that
Women
too.
women are looked at as weaker, especially by somebody who's a predator. So they're gonna
Right.
see the two headphones and then be like, "Oh, I got my spot."
And look, man, like I tell you, it's a tricky space to be in because if you're a man that is welcoming, that's kind and warm, women could pick that up and smell it a mile away, and they'll be happy
Hmm.
to hang out with you. The problem is if you're actually really a good guy, there's a chance that you may not even be able to have the friendship because she may want more than a friendship. You understand what I'm saying? Like it's a
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
weird space to be in, but I do think once you set boundaries in any form and shape, whether she does it or you set it or you both do, it's always able you're always able to have that type of relationship that's warm and welcoming where a woman does feel comfortable around you and you feel comfortable around her knowing that like all right she gets it, she know I got a girl, she know I got a wife, and those things can be, they could exist together.
And you know what? If it's gonna sound fucked up, but if a woman doesn't feel comfortable around you, you shouldn't be upset about that. You should look at what it is that you gave off that made her feel that way. You should, if, and you can put that on a lot of different things. If you're white and black people don't feel comfortable around you, maybe you're
Hmm.
doing something that makes them feel uncomfortable
Yeah, there's some book about that. Why are all the black kids sitting at one lunch table, something like that. I forgot that the full name, but
because their experience with your group was bad. It's
yeah.
not your fault. Like, right, the whole thing with with the guy and the girl feeling uncomfortable. You might not be the problem. You might remind her, maybe something you said came off a certain way and gave her, you know, I've had problems before with men like this. Women have to deal with, black people have to deal with, minorities have to deal with things that you don't understand as a white person, as a man, as a non-black person, right? Like I say all the time, I've grown up in proximity to black people, but I've never gone to sleep black. I've never woken up black. So I don't know. I don't know. I was mistaken when I was
Right,
on
right,
the work trip. I was mistaken for being black, but it was because it was a black dude from Texas who never met no Puerto Ricans. His
right, right.
idea of a Latino is a Mexican. I don't look
By
Mexican
by
at
by
all.
the by the way, that's a funny thing, but in my lady was telling me in California, y'all are also much like myself being Jamaican, we're like seen as exotic out there. Like, oh snap. Like,
Yeah,
oh, you
brother.
from there? Like, what?
We are a dime a dozen in New York, but out west, brother.
Yeah, yeah. They like, what? You came all the way because ultimately we stay closer to the coast, I mean to the East
Mm-hmm.
Coast because
Because it's
obviously
a
we
hop, skip, and a jump back home.
exactly. You know what I mean? So
That's why you get a lot. That's why you get a lot of Pacific Islanders out in
Cali.
California,
Yeah.
and you get a lot of Eastern Europeans out in California,
Yeah.
and through that Eurasian area.
Yes, yes. Absolutely, man. But I'll say this, man. There's a lot of work as far as when it comes to us as men recognizing the forms in which that we isolate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize, like, as I've matured, is that there's still many of us that are young children, that are older children,
Yes,
in our
man
second childhood.
boys,
Yeah.
man
And
boys.
they haven't matured enough to the point that they could actually even have a conversation about an issue that they face. When
Mm-hmm.
my boys
So,
talk to me and they tell me a problem that's going on in their life and just call me up and go, yeah, man, I don't know, such and such, da da da. That's when I know we're at a level where they get it. Like, yo, bruh, you ain't gotta hold that in and try to be the tough guy. You understand what I'm saying? Like,
mm-hmm.
it'll eat away
Well,
at you.
without going into too much detail, we had an off-air conversation the other yesterday, I think it was.
Hmm.
By the way, I did 60 squats today.
Uh, yeah, yeah. That's what I'm talking
I
about.
did 60, 20 with no weight, 20 with a little bit of weight, 20 with a little bit more weight. Anyway,
Shit. All
part of
right,
what
all
we
right.
talked about yesterday, I would have probably felt embarrassed to mention, right?
Mm, mm.
Speaking about emotional immaturity, but you mentioned it first and it motivated me to start doing that again. Not just the squats, something else.
Right,
But
right.
long story short, even at almost 50, that was on my behalf emotional immaturity because you talked about it like it was, just another thing. While I'm
Yeah,
sitting here thinking, I don't want to tell nobody about this, right? And
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's just another thing. But a lot of us don't think about that because we're we're raised to be tough because we're never taught not to be insecure.
yeah, yeah. I tell you, man, I'm right there with you, and I give that credit to my son, and my son doesn't even realize it though, but it's because I had to be a single father for that time frame, and that time frame
Mm-hmm.
had me understand like I can't be a rock. This is a child. He just came into this world, I'd say it was like 3 years when I
Mm,
was like became a single father. It was like he just became a child at 3 years old. He just came into this world. He doesn't know
hmm.
anything. I can't let him hold things in and beat himself down.
No.
If he decides to do that because as he gets older he gets conditioned to, that's still something I'll talk to him about, but I can't stop it at that point. You know,
Yeah, and you can't be the genesis of it. If the
right.
world is, the world is, and it will be. The world will be, the genesis of that. But especially as a single father, you have to. Everybody loves to talk about Furious from Boys in the Hood, and he was
Yeah.
he was a good father, but he was the father you're talking about. He was a rock at all times. He needed
Hmm.
to be, right? And he
Hmm.
did have the mother in that case, but you don't want to be that guy 24/7, especially if your child only has you. If your
Hmm.
child has you and the mother, and I try not to be that, right? I try to be as not that as possible, especially because I'm raising two girls. I don't
Right.
want them to ever think that that is the way a man should act. I want them to think
Right.
that the way
Right on.
me
Right
and their
on.
mom interact is the right
Right.
way.
Right on, brother. Right on.
But in your case, to be that rock all the time and not be the sensitive, caring, nurturing, which is really the word,
Yeah.
the nurturing parent, you would have been doing your child a disservice. You can grow up without the rock. You cannot grow up without the nurture.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one part that I got from him and I learned so much, man. Because again, if you're not growing with your children, I don't think you're really doing a good job. I think
I
you.
was gonna say, isn't it wild how much you learn from them?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you
Reflection.
think you go into it thinking that you're gonna be the teacher, oh, I'm gonna teach my son this, that, and the third, and then you wind up learning so much from them, even as they get older.
Right.
My
Right.
mother used to tell me that all the time. Oh, I learned so much from you, and I just like, ha ha, whatever. Sounds funny, but it's true. And I don't even, with me and my sons, I'm not even all that. I'm not in touch with them as much as I should be. But
Mm-hmm.
whenever I speak to them, it's always like I get this new perspective on something that we're talking about because they're seeing it through eyes that I guess haven't been as jaded as mine.
Right. Right.
And in some ways they are because this generation, like we were a little bit more jaded than our generation. So we just see it through a different natural lens.
They have access to tools that we didn't have at a
Mm,
certain at an earlier age, so that definitely causes the issue. But their ability to actually see these things and then have a constructive outlook on them is based on what we give them as a foundation. And
yes.
that's fundamentally key so that they could see things for what they are. Because my son talked to me the other day and said, I didn't mess with any of the girls at work because I don't want to mess with girls at work because it's going to cause a problem. And I was like,
Hmm.
I'm glad you know that, but I don't remember telling you that. He goes, yeah, I figured it out. It's like, all right, cool,
Hmm.
cool, man. You know what I'm saying? But things like that are
Hmm.
extremely important. But dialing back and to be honest with you, man, like I had to step away from people that still saw me in the same light as I was when I was in my 20s or my
Yep.
teens.
Yeah.
And
We've had that conversation before. I did it later in life, but I had to do it in order to make sure that what was best for the people here was what was going to happen.
right. And you could see who your true friends are because they're willing to accept the different degrees of your personality. From the side
Hmm.
that's frustrated or upset about shit and they're allowing you to be upset and frustrated and still telling you like, yo, you got it, man, don't worry about it, blah blah blah. From another side of you that may be immature and may do or say something that's incorrect, and yeah, you fucked up there, no big deal, yo, you can get it back, Jay, no big deal.
Hmm.
To the other side of you that's confident that may make them feel uncomfortable because they're looking at it like, damn, how did he do that? Damn, I wish
Yep.
I could do that, but I don't want to ask him because I'm gonna feel like I'm beneath him. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
There's
But
little.
that's that insecurity I was talking about before.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, no. It's just like I said before. I don't know about other communities, but in the communities you and I come from, we're taught to be tough so that we don't need to deal with being insecure. When I'm not saying that you shouldn't teach your boys and your girls, especially your girls, to be tough, but it's not always the answer. It's not the only answer.
Right.
It should be the last answer.
I agree. I agree. I completely agree with you on that, man. Should be the last answer. What kind of what kind of thing now would you say is the thing that made you mature and made the difference in your maturity or things? Because we all know it's not one thing. It's probably a group of things, but can you point to any of those things?
Realizing that nobody was coming. Well, I realized a long time ago nobody was coming to save me, but realizing that my time being able to dodge obligations was coming up.
Hmm.
I was running short on that time. I knew for a long time that I was ignoring my responsibilities, but I realized very quickly that I wasn't going to be able to do that anymore. And that was a very serious kick in the ass.
Hmm. I get it. I get it, man. I get it. I think I stumbled on that when I was like at least like 25, 26.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it kicked me in the face. And I had I had an episode where I got into an accident, and that accident could have been avoided if I would have tampered down on my vices, as
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to say. My vices were just in full effect that day from like 1 o'clock in the morning, sorry, 1 o'clock in the afternoon to all the way to like 2 o'clock in the morning at night. Like we
Man.
we were going hard that day, like drinking, smoking cigarettes, weed, drinking, smoking,
Mm-hmm.
all day.
You told me about this. Yeah, yeah.
So I learned a quick lesson, and then I dusted myself off and picked myself back up. But I do think one of the things that I picked up, and I'll say this, is the the I the ideology that I stay with when it comes to most things is keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Keep moving forward. And if you fall back, don't worry about it as much when you actually fall. And this is for me. I'm speaking for myself for what works for me. I try not to worry about it when I fall. What I try to do is get back up and start going again. And as I'm going in the process, I go, okay, why did I fall that time? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if it's blaring in my face, like, yo, you know what? You were studying 10 days in the last 2 weeks or whatever. You were studying the 10 out of those days. What was the day that you stopped and you had an issue? Oh, you drank too much the night before, and then you didn't wake up on time, and then you didn't work out, and then you didn't like it all. That's the way I try to work with
Mm-hmm.
it. You know what I'm saying? And figure out
Well,
the pattern.
yeah, well, like you said, you move forward, you get out of the spot first, and then you figure out afterwards what got you in the spot. You don't tether yourself to the individual failure, which is
That's
what a lot of people do.
That's a great point right there. Tethering yourself to the individual failure. I like that. I like that. Like, share, subscribe, folks, in the Cypher podcast. That's a bar right there for y'all. Message, you know?
But it's true, right? Like you had a better approach to it. Get out of whatever the rut is, and then when you're out of it, assess the failure, which is, I mean, if you look at any kind of a software development team, any kind of a large production environment, that's what they do. They don't assess at the moment that failure happens. They get out of the failure mode,
Hmm.
get as close to normal as possible, and then take the time to look at what caused the failure. Because the most important thing, like Kujo said, is moving forward.
That's right. That's right. I'll say this, folks. Success, if you go look up the real definition of success, it's of the actual attempt, not the
Mm-hmm.
completion. It's the attempt of the actual act or the goal that you're trying to accomplish. Just the
Yes.
attempt. But you're not taught that in school. They just taught you success is making sure you get the 90. And even
Well,
if, instead of,
success and goals are two different things, right?
right.
Success is essentially the repeated attempts to reach your goal,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? But people think it's like happiness. People think that happiness is a point in life. It's not. It's just not.
No.
There's no point in life where you're going to wake up and go to sleep every single day and be fucking happy. I don't care what you buy yourself, what dream you have that you achieve, you will never be that. If you think that that's possible, look at Jeff Bezos, look at Elon Musk, look at a lot of these billionaires. None of them look happy.
Not at all.
They look rich, they look like they have expensive shit, but they
Yeah.
don't look happy. They don't look fulfilled.
Yeah. And by the way, and like, share, subscribe, folks, once again, Jeff Bezos just recently did an interview, and oh, man, was it horrible, atrocious,
Mm-hmm.
bro, atrocious. This guy freaking trying to take people for fools. Like, yeah, tax the rich. You want to tax me more? I already pay my share in taxes. And dip, dip, dip. I was like, man,
Didn't he get a tax return a couple of years
of
ago or some
course
shit?
he did. He got tax return now. This whole big so-called disgusting bill that passed got him an even a bigger tax return. So it's like, who are you trying to fool? Like, who's buying the shit that you're peddling? Like, you're not fooling anybody. You're
The
not
same people
going.
that the same people that think that painting the reflecting pool blue is winning.
It's just
Dude,
it's
I've had
mind-boggling.
arguments with people. I've had arguments with people who are arguing on behalf of a group of people who they will never be amongst. Even if they're wildly successful at life, they will never be amongst those people. And they're sitting here being cucked champions of these people.
I think the there's a little bit of a space there where people are actually trying to assimilate and thinking that they can eventually aspire to be billionaires, millionaires, etc., not realizing the type of work and the quote unquote manipulation and obviously subjugation you will have to do in order to reach a certain point of millionaire slash billionaire status.
Listen
You're
to
not going
me.
to pay
Listen to me.
people, you're not going to pay people what they deserve if you're going to become a billionaire. It's just not going to happen. Every single
Listen
one
to
of
me.
them pay people
Dreaming
less than what
about
they're own.
dreaming about banging the baddest bitch is never going to get you to bang the baddest bitch. I could dream about being a billionaire all day long. There is nothing that I'm going to do to achieve that goal. I might make $1 million. I might make a couple of $1 million. I might make $100 million. I ain't making $1 billion. So why am I going to sit here and advocate for those people?
See, the fascinating thing is, though, that's what's been sold to most Americans is that you can become that. And many Americans have,
Temporarily embarrassed millionaires.
yeah,
America's full of them.
yeah. And I think that does people a lot of disservice. There's also some work that's been done. My gosh, he's a French philosopher. I have to actually find his work, and he describes the ruling class, the so-called classical elites, the people that have been around for whatever ages,
Mm-hmm.
and how they decipher between people that have just come into money as opposed to people that are, you know, they have a
From
name.
money.
Yeah, they have a
From
name.
money.
And a book like Great Gatsby would be a fine example, and that's what the main character struggled with. He struggled with the fact that he got the money, even though it was illegal through moonshine, and ultimately he ended up trying to be a name, but he was able
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
buy and purchase all the things everybody else did, but he still
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the name. And they broke him on that point right there. The
Yeah.
fact that he didn't have the name and he didn't have the real status and know how to move like somebody
In
that was
that world.
wealthy. Exactly.
Watch
Exactly.
watch any mafia movie.
Yeah,
That's typically the juxtaposition in the mafia is that they've got this money, but they don't understand how to move it in a polite society world, which
correct.
doesn't mean that there's not underhanded backstabbing shit happening in those worlds. It just
Absolutely.
happens at a different level than what they're used to because they're
Absolutely.
used to the upfront, which is me and you. We would be used to the upfront, in your face, what's going on, as opposed to the getting stabbed in the back while somebody's smiling in your face.
Yeah, everything. I mean, and 50 Cent actually said this, and I'm surprised I'm saying something that he's saying, but it's the it's the truth. He said, "I've seen more people get robbed in a conference room with a bunch of suits
Yes,
than I have
yes.
in the streets. Like,
Gangster entire pension funds.
gone,
Yep,
gone,
yep. Walked off like it was nothing.
gone. You
But
know?
that's That's how come there's so many mediocre white men, because there's other mediocre white men stealing from them. Listen to me. I don't care how rich you are. I don't care how much money you have in the bank. If you had to hurt people to make all that money, you're not great. The
Not
things
at
you're
all.
great at aren't good things.
Not at all. But I will say this, in 48 Laws of Power, there are some aspects of understanding greatness that I listened to and I've read and I disagreed with because Robert, oh my gosh, I forgot this guy's name, but either way, he was explaining some of these things and he explained them like, look, if you don't do this, you're going to be weak and da 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 da. But it's coming from a Eurocentric point of view of domination, of subjugation.
Yeah. That's my problem with it is, yeah, you might seem weak to somebody who is looking at life through a lens of dominating other people. It doesn't mean you're weak. It just
Exactly.
means that because you don't look to dominate others, those who do,
Yeah. Yeah.
their idea of you is weak.
Exactly. But this is where, and I'll say this is where finding a space where you fit in and is comfortable is one of the most warmest and positive things you could actually do for yourself. And that space may be with two or three friends,
Hmm.
with your lady, with your children, with your family, whatever it is, with some old coworker that you met at the MSP, like what
Yeah.
like you find the space where you are welcome and comfortable. And that, I'm telling you, man, is such a powerful thing. It's more
Hmm.
than what you ever think
But
it is.
that's what we were saying before with these, white kids shooting up shit. They don't have that.
No,
And
they
and
don't.
none of I mean, you might have mentioned a relationship, like a romantic relationship, but everything else you mentioned was just, the benefits of having friends and family members and people that care about you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
not having that, I can understand why some people feel the way they do. I don't agree with how they express themselves, but I
Hmm.
understand the feeling. If I didn't have a family, if I was my age or anywhere near my age and I didn't have a family and I didn't have at least some kind of friends and a network of people that I could at least interact with, I feel like shit too.
Exactly. Exactly, man. We're social creatures, man, at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And they've done the data. I mean, and people could look this up if you want. They found that, yeah, you could work out all you want and eat all the right foods. If you're alone, that itself will lead you to depression and will get you
Yeah.
sick. That's crazy, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Just think about that. So that means the person that socializes more, they've also found that they have better cognitive skills as they mature and get older. So there's multiple reasons to actually have these circles of friends that keep you strong and keep you aware, keep you on your toes. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's a blessing in disguise in so many ways, man. You
It
know,
is. It is.
So that said, we're gonna try to wrap this one up, folks. I think we got a lot of. I don't know how long we went.
We
We
we got
went,
a lot off of the outline for the night.
yeah, yeah. We went in because it's 11, and we went in,
Mm-hmm.
folks. So, but again, like, share, subscribe. Thank you for sticking with us for the time being, folks. We will catch you on the rebound. Bad guy, you got some stuff you want to let people know?
Nah, man, we're gonna try to keep the schedule up a little bit better, and we'll
Absolutely.
talk to you guys next week.
Next week it is, y'all. Peace.
Peace.